Stunning. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach, aka Crochet Zaddy, and I am a crochet content creator, and I design cute plushies and the patterns for them, and I sell them all over on my website, so go check it out. In today's video, we're doing a part 2 to the market prep saga. If you missed out on part 1, how dare you? That's rude. No, I'm just kidding. Part 1 is linked up here. It is a video that is about the 12 things to consider when preparing for your first ever market, and I pretty much collated all the different things that you need to think of before you actually get into prepping for your market. So definitely go watch that one before you're starting watching this one, as this one is going to be focused primarily on pricing and just pricing your products. So I'm going to be primarily talking about pricing plushies, but this can be pretty much applied to many other crafts or other handmade goods out there, so just apply it as you will. The reason why I am creating this little market prep series is because I am going to be participating in a large market on the 12th to the 14th of July here in Melbourne, Australia, and that market is called the Finders Keepers Market. You may know of it because of a little strawberry mug drama that was covered by my friend Emma from Emma in the Moment, so definitely go check that video out as well. But I will also be at said market in July, so I'm preparing for that, and I just wanted to take you all on the journey with me. I'll be posting a further 2 videos after this pricing video that is going to be covering how to set up your display and about inventory and inventory planning. So definitely go check those out when they're out. I will have them linked below when they're ready. Now onto the video. I feel like it is one of the most common questions that people want to ask when they're preparing for their first market or just preparing to sell their products, and that is just, how do I price them? Where do I start? What is the formula you use? And to be honest, there's so many different ways you can price your products, and I think the thing to note is that when you do price your products, you can change the price later on. Like, I would just say start somewhere, start with what you think is the best place to start pricing your products, and then improve on it from there. So it's not the be all and end all of your business. It's just something to definitely consider and work on as time goes on. Plus, like, the prices will change over time, the economy will change, your quality will change. There's just so many factors that go into it. So don't stress out if you're pricing your items wrong at first. You will get it right eventually, and you will get into a good rhythm. So let me help you out by starting off that rhythm by giving you some ideas or different ways that you can actually price your products that makes sense. So the first approach I'm going to talk about is just literally a very casual one, and it is just market pricing. So it's when you're just going out there and looking at what's on the market, what other people are selling of the similar or same products, and then just kind of matching your price to theirs. It is a very simple way of doing it, although probably not the most well thought out way of doing it. I think there's better ways to price your products, but I would say this is always a good start, honestly. Like, just go into Etsy, go to a market, see what people are selling, and if you think your item is of equal quality or even a better quality, just put your prices at the same, if not higher. The only issues with that is that you don't know what people's intentions are when they're selling their plushies. They might be just wanting to sell their items as what they cost. They might not be after a profit. They might just be wanting to sell what they've made, and this is just a hobby to them. So that's just something to consider. I think the key thing to note from that is that you need to check in on what your intentions are. Like, are you wanting to make a profit? Are you wanting to have a sustainable business? Or are you just a hobbyist crocheter and you just want to sell your products for the cost of what the actual product is? So just something to think about, but that's like the first approach. It's very, very easy, very, very casual, and very not recommended. And the next one here. So this one is what I call the precise method, and honestly, I didn't really have a name for either of these methods. The first one is called market-based pricing, and the next one I call the precise method because you're just calculating like everything that you use to the like decimal point. So when you're looking at your materials cost, you're weighing your yarn, you're getting your yarn ball, you're weighing it beforehand, you're creating your product, you're measuring the yarn ball afterwards, and then you're weighing how much of your yarn weight that you used in that product was actually taken out of the overall cost of that yarn ball. And you're doing that with all the materials. You're looking at the stuffing, the safety eyes, anything else, and you're just getting a very precise cost of what it actually took to create your item. And I feel like this is the best approach for those out there who are big data nerds. They just want to know what is the most cost-effective way of creating plushies that sell well. So you might be looking at what has a better rate of selling. You might want to see what is the most cost-effective plushie, what uses the least amount of yarn but you can actually sell for more, things like that. And personally, I think it's good for those who want to know those things, but I don't have the time for all of that. I just can't be bothered. Like, I create my plushies willy-nilly and then I bring them along with me to a market. So like everything behind here I made for a different purpose that wasn't a market. I was creating all of these because I create the patterns and then I sell them afterwards. Like, I don't remember how much yarn I used in all of these plushies. I didn't measure anything. I'm just gonna give like a rough estimate if I was gonna ever calculate any material costs. So it's just like, I think that method of being very precise and looking into how much time and materials cost and being very detail focused on that, it's good for some things, but it's just not my way of doing things, and I think that's okay. Like, do what you want to do. If you want to be so down to the point about what the actual costs are, then by all means go for it, but I'm gonna use that time to make another plushie, okay? And that's when it comes into my method. So I talked about this very briefly in my pricing materials feature in my last video, and essentially I do a method which is very basic, and it goes by this formula. Material cost plus labor cost plus overheads equals my total price, or my total cost of the item. I then get that total cost and I multiply that by a profit margin to get my sales price. That's it. Very simple. Material cost, labor cost, overheads cost, added together, multiply by the profit margin. There we are. Sales price. And just to go into a bit more details of what I mean in each of those costs, materials, I'm literally talking about the cost of materials. This is, as I said, something you can precisely measure. You've got your yarns, your safety eyes, your stuffing, everything like that. And then you got your labor cost, which is how long it took for you to create said plushie or said item. This one, I think you need to think a little bit more about what that looks like and how much you're actually charging yourself as an artist creating something. Because I know with like beginner artists, you might actually be taking a lot more time and therefore you might cost more in a way. So if it takes me about 2 hours to make a plushie, it might take someone else 4 hours to make a plushie. So I need to account for that and really raise my own labor costs to match my quality of skill. Understand? Good. And then there's the last thing, which is your overheads, and these are the costs that affect the entire business. This might be your marketing expenses, your travel expenses, your actual market expenses, and you need to get the total cost of these and spread that across the amount of items you have. So for example, if I'm planning to make 250 plushies for this market, my stall fees are $1,000, my travel is $10, I didn't spend anything on marketing, so my overheads is probably going to be about $4 a plushie, but I might just raise that to $5 just to make it easier for the maths later on. You understand what I mean. Anyway, so when I actually get into using my formula, let me just give you an example. So let's say I have a little cat plushie, and this little cat plushie took me 1 hour to make. So I'm going to say my materials cost was $5. My labor cost was, let's say I work for $20 minimum an hour, so let's say it's $20. And then my overheads cost, let's say it's $5 as well. So that means the plushie costs about $30 to make. So once I get that $30, I want to multiply that with my profit margin being 50%, or I want to add my profit margin of 50%. So the way I do that would be timesing that number by 1.5, and that'll give me my sales price. So my sales price is $45, which seems like a reasonable price for the plushie I've made. So if I do that again with another plushie, let's say my little Jolteon that I've got here, let's say this took me about 3 hours to make, right? So the materials cost, once again, let's just say it was $5. I don't know, anyway, let's just say it's $5. And then let's say it took me about 3 hours to make, so it's $60, right? And then another $5 for the overheads. So that means my total cost to produce this plushie was $70. Now if I add my profit margin by just timesing by 1.5, that means the overall cost is $105, which feels fair to me, but honestly, if you feel like that might be a little bit too high or a little bit too low, then you can play with that kind of profit margin just to your comfort levels. Like maybe I might think it's actually a bit better to just sell this at 100, but the thing is I'm actually only cutting out on my profit margin. I'm not cutting out of the total cost, which is something you don't want to do unless you're just selling this as a hobby. But this is for these people who want to make profits in sustainable businesses. So only cut out of your profit margin, don't cut out of your total cost. Good. And then there's also another strategy, which is actually making sales or even doing like bundle deals and things. And as I just mentioned, that is when you want to play around with your profit margins even more. So let's just give you an example. Let's say I have one cat, which was $45 sales price, and another cat, which was $45 sales price. If I added those together, that's just $90 for the two of them, right? But if I wanted to make a bundle deal of like 2 cats for a little bit less, what I can do is I can actually get the total costs for producing each unit, so $30 and $30, which means $60. I can actually shrink the profit margin that I add on there to make that bundle deal. So let's say, I don't know, let's just say like 40% profit margin. So if I have one cat for $30, another cat $30, get that to $60, added together obviously, and then I multiply that by 1.4, that'll come to a sales price or a bundle price of $84. Now that might feel like a bit of a weird number, so I might just like play around with that a little bit more and maybe shrink that down to $80 and say $80 for the 2 plushies. Maybe that's something that I want to go with as my sales price. But even when doing that, I might be a bit like, oh, that seems like a little bit too much of a cut. And what if I want to make it seem more enticing that someone buys the 2 rather than just the 1? What I could do is I could increase the profit margin of a singular cat from $45 up to $50 just by increasing that profit margin. That would mean you'd have one cat for $50 and then the 2 cats for $80. So that's just like one way to play around with bundles and sales, and I hope that you can see like the benefits of doing that and see how potentially scaring people into, not scaring, but like, you get what I mean, like trying to entice them into buying 2 can still get you a good profit, but then if they're only willing to have 1, then you actually earn a little bit more from a singular sale. Understand? So the point of why I'm bringing this up is I'm just trying to say is that like what you need to calculate is your total cost or total cost to produce, and you can play around with the profit margins to really either drive a sales price or drive different kind of bundles and things. Sorry, there's a dog outside, you might hear it squeaking around. But yeah, the main point I'm trying to say about this is that you can play around with the profit margins and not really touch the cost to produce, and that is where you can play around with these deals or play around with getting a higher profit or whatever you want to do with those prices. So that's just something to think about, but it's the way that I like to price my plushies is to get that total cost and then play with the profit margins to create what kind of sustainable business I am trying to create here. Cool. Understand? Perfect. That's everything I'm going to cover in this video. I think that gives you a good insight into how to approach your pricing, a good formula to approach, things to think about, and I hope you learned something in this video. Please let me know in the comments below. If you have any other questions or anything, also please let me know in the comments below. I really enjoy making these videos, so I always want to make sure that I am giving the best amount of information I can to my audience and not really leaving anything out that I can provide as something helpful or useful to all of you. So thank you for coming along on today's video. Please don't forget to give me a like, comment, or subscribe. I do notice when people are watching these but they aren't subscribing, which is a weirdly disproportionate amount of you, but whatever. So up to you guys, really. I mean, I appreciate it. I also just want to say a huge thank you to everyone in my Patreon. I mentioned this in my last video, which was a big focus on Patreon. You guys are amazing. You guys are really changing my life and I cannot thank you enough. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you all, and I really, really appreciate your support. If you're thinking about joining in on my Patreon, we have a very, very cool community. We have our community night coming up on May 13th, as well as many other pattern benefits and things like that coming along. So definitely go check it out, and once again, thank you. But I think that's all from me in this video. I will be doing the next part of this market prep video pretty soon, and that will be all about inventory planning and inventory preparation. So that is one that you don't want to miss. Definitely go check that out. If I've already filmed that and put it out, it'll be linked in the description below. Apart from that, that's all. So have a wonderful day, dawn, dusk, night, evening, whatever time it is for you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Bye.